a good thing to do. So I'm going to hopefully kind of come at it with a little bit different angle here and there too to give us some more things to think
Perfect.
about um,
Crazy.
with it. Okay, awesome. My name is Rachel Simonson. I'm here at Minot State University. I'm the spiritual wellness coordinator. So I get to do all the things just to kind of help with like the well-being and lots of different ways because spiritual wellness reaches out into a lot of different areas. But gratitude is definitely one of them. So as I'm thinking about gratitude and some of the reasons why it can be so helpful and important, I don't know if you've heard something called the hedonic treadmill before. It's like a theory that basically says like no matter what happens in your life, like really great things or really terrible things, after the initial experience of it, we kind of go back to like a basic level of what we were before, right? So we like get a new house and it's really exciting. And then a year or two later, it's just kind of back to how we were feeling before, or something not like traumatic, because that can change us in ways that we need help to kind of overcome. But something that's like, our car breaks down and it's a really big pain in the butt for like a week. And then, a month later, things kind of get back to normal again. And we kind of feel the same level of happiness, sort of overall. Interestingly, there are things that they're finding that can actually kind of help us break out of that a little bit, and that we actually have some more control a little bit on kind of our sense of happiness in the world. But it doesn't have to do with our external circumstances, so much as our internal perspectives on the world and like our internal, like the way we think about our thoughts and we think about our experiences and how we relate to them. Um, Also, interestingly, there's again a study, and if somebody wants to know like where it's from, we can get that later. But there's a study that breaks down sort of our happiness level with like three different kind of main things that kind of contribute to our sense of happiness. And one of them, the biggest one, is just sort of like our genetically determined temperament that we're born with, and that's like 50% of how that contributes in. So it's not like if you're naturally super happy or kind of morose, it's like that's it and you're stuck with it. Like it's more complex than that. But that is about 50%. It contributes in that much. And then you have the circumstances of life that we were kind of talking about with that, the things that happen to us in our external world. They actually account for that being about 10% of how that contributes in, which I think is really interesting because I don't know about you, but I always sort of thought that like, if I can just get that new job, if I can just make that kind of money, if I can just have, these certain things, then I'll be happy, right? But that's only actually about 10%. So there is an effect there, but it's not as dramatic as we might think. And then the last 40% is how we think about our thoughts and we think about and relate to our experiences and sort of that inner monologue in our life. And that can be changed and that can be like we can have tools to practice to make to kind of help us think about things differently. So that is a bit more pliable and we're not stuck with it. If we don't think about it at all, we sort of get swept into our own automatic thoughts and ways of thinking that are sometimes helpful and sometimes can be things that hinder us in our life. But we can be more conscious and intentional about practices that do help us to think about things more differently and raise our happiness level as we kind of work on that last part. Again, 40% can make a pretty big impact on how we see the world. Um, so, of course, then, as you may have guessed, gratitude is one of the ways that we can take a hold of that 40% of how we think about our thoughts and our experiences in life. There's lots of different tools, but one of them definitely is gratitude. And that's kind of how that fits in with our sense of happiness and well-being. So, my guess is that some of you already have a gratitude practice in your life. So, if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment and writing in the chat box, just like one thing you do already, or you have done in the past, that you find to be a nice gratitude practice. So I'll give you a moment to do that. As you do, I'm just going to read just like 20 seconds of statistics. So not a lot, because I think we all kind of generally know. But a gratitude practice, um, has benefits also of having better sleep, better immunity, higher self-esteem, decreased stress, lower blood pressure, less anxiety and depression, stronger relationships, higher levels of optimism, and greater life satisfaction. So those are, again, if you needed a little bit of inspiration on why gratitude is also helpful too, that's just kind of some fun facts as well. So looking at the chat box, Dear God, I'm thankful journal. Fantastic. Every morning, first thing I do is thank God for at least one thing in my life. Try to focus on the positive. Journaling again, yep, or just reminding myself every day what I'm thankful for. Yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, if you want to keep putting stuff in the chat box, you sure can, or you can just kind of think about it as well. Start my day by counting my blessings one by one until I feel overwhelmed with gratitude. That's fantastic. I love that. Um, yeah. And as we continue to think about gratitude and like the benefits of gratitude, I do want to put two little pieces in for like not really a caveat, but just something to kind of expand the picture. Because there can be a couple of like spots that can sort of get us into trouble a little bit. So just to acknowledge those. The first one I want to acknowledge that sometimes the pressure to feel grateful can actually make us feel more stressed out and have more judgment on ourselves. So if we're like, oh, I should feel grateful more often, like I know my life is good, but why do I feel so depressed? And should feel so like I just should feel grateful. I don't know why I'm so like sad all the
There we
time,
go.
or um, um, so I think just to acknowledge, like, if that speaks to you and that sometimes you feel like you should feel grateful and that you're just a terrible person because you're not feeling grateful enough, or you try to feel grateful, you don't feel it the way you should. Just to like again acknowledge that like that's okay, right? Um, it's like I said, it's a practice, right? You don't have to be really amazing at it right away. And if we are feeling depressed, doing as we begin a gratitude practice, we're probably not going to feel great like right away, right? It's probably going to take some time. Um, and just knowing that that time factor is always really a big part of it. It's not just this instantaneous fix thing. And to give ourselves self-compassion and just notice, like, I feel like I should feel grateful, but I'm just really feeling crappy today. Like, that's where I'm at. That's okay. Right. To so take the pressure off of like having to feel a certain way. Um, Especially this time around Thanksgiving, right? When we're all like really highlighting it. But that's all right. So then the second caveat too, is sometimes we can sort of get caught into this like trap of like being positive about absolutely every single thing. And maybe we're successful sort of in this endeavor to just always feel happy and like everything's fine. But then we're maybe not acknowledging the other emotions that we might feel are like negative emotions because we're just trying to focus on the good thing all the time and just ignore the bad stuff, right? But actually, the the hope with gratitude, and I'm also an advocate of like meditation and these kinds of things that are more mindful, um, is that it can help us actually live into all of our emotions more fully and to be able to stand the feeling of uncertainty and discomfort. And so it's more of gratitude's trying to like balance out some of these things, but it doesn't have to like be the only thing in our life, right? Um, it's just like a random story that I hope isn't too morose. About 10 years ago, my mom was dying of a brain tumor. And luckily it went like fairly quickly. It wasn't like years drawn out. But she really lost her main symptom was that she really lost her short-term memory. And so she, it seemed like she was like a advanced Alzheimer's patient. And she was in like her early 60s, right? So it was just very difficult to be around her because she wasn't herself. She was just sort of like a shell of who she was. Um, and physically she was like okay and like present, but it's just you couldn't have a conversation and she would just sort of stare off blankly and like she just wasn't herself. And I was talking to my friend about it, like how hard it was. And my friend, her response was like, "Oh, but you must feel so grateful that you can still like be close at home to like visit her and like still be around her, you know, for the time that you can." And in my head, I was like, "Bullshit! I am not at all grateful for this." Like, and just not being able to, I mean, trying to like hold on to the gratitude, at the expense of like the reality of life, isn't necessarily helpful either. So again, just to like acknowledge that there's more emotions to feel than just gratitude. Gratitude has its place and is a really important kind of rock in the midst of like the pieces of our life, but we don't do it at the expense of everything else. All right. Um, so just kind of interestingly, I want to, like I said, I kind of want to approach it because we all kind of know a bit about gratitude, and its importance. I kind of want to approach just a slightly different angle as we think about gratitude as well. And that is, so coming at it, thinking about like our habits of thinking. Um, we don't, because they're habits, we don't always realize that we're doing it and that we have sort of automatic thoughts that come into our brain to help us explain the world. But our brains love to find new things and be creative and like figure out new stuff in the world. And in order to do that, they need to like automate certain like things that they can do just quickly without having to spend like a lot of time and energy on every new experience that we have. Like we'd rather pull up an old file that worked for us before and like automate that than to like every single encounter we have to have like a totally new experience, right? So let me kind of explain that a little bit more. Um, Dopamine is one of like our like many chemicals in our brain, and one of which that helps our like sense of a reward. So if we do something and we feel like we've explained something, like something happens, and we have this story that we come up in our head that's explained the situation, we get a little dopamine hit. Um, we're we're like made for stories. And so if we have just like a little piece of information, but we don't have the whole story, we will make a story that helps to explain the larger situation. So we can like put the pieces together like little detectives, and it's like, oh yes, this is what's going on. And then because we've completed the story, our brain is like, yes, I love stories. You get a dopamine hit, you figured it out, and then that gets stored then in our like file system to say, next time we're in a similar situation, I can pull that file out because that story worked for me then, and I got a really sweet feeling of dopamine and reward. And so I'm going to keep pulling this file out to help explain the situation. Now, it doesn't have to be true for us to like it. We just have to have it be a complete story. Like a beginning, middle, end. We got it all figured out. That's the only thing that matters. We don't have to fact check it or know that it's true for us to get that reward. So if I'm at like a party or something and I'm feeling really uncomfortable and I don't have a lot of people to talk with, and I try to spark up like some conversation with somebody and they really didn't engage, and then I go home, right? So this is a part of the story that I know. So my mind wants to complete that story and like, well, why didn't that person want to talk to me? And like I really tried to overcome my feeling of not knowing anybody and still talking to people, but I tried and they basically shut me down and I had to finish the story, right? Why did they do that? And so I might come up with the idea that like, well, maybe I'm just really awkward. And like maybe I'm ugly and I'm really not worth talking to. I'm not interesting. Um, all the things, right? And then that explains the situation. Oh, that's why they didn't really want to talk to me. It's because I'm awkward and uninteresting, right? And so it might not be true. It could very well be that that person was having a really bad day or was feeling really nauseous and was just like trying to fight not puking all over me, or just got really bad news, or is also just like struggling with social circumstances. Like we don't know what actually is happening with that person that didn't engage with us very well, but we have created a story that makes sense enough for our brains to give us that dopamine hit. And then we're like, sweet, all right, I got it. Like, it's not a story that makes me feel good because I don't want to think of myself as like awkward and uninteresting. But it still completes the story. And so my brain still likes it, even if it might make me feel bad, right? Because it's a terrible feeling that I'm awkward and not interesting. But we'll still put it in our file. And every time we're in a new situation where we're trying to like maybe start a conversation with somebody, trying to meet somebody new, and maybe it doesn't go very well, we look into our file and say, all right, what can explain this? Oh, yes, here it is. I'm awkward and uninteresting. And I can apply that to now this situation too. And the files that have the most success over and over, we're just going to keep going back to more and more often, right? And so we can suddenly have an automatic thought that I'm just like, as I think about myself, I'm just like awkward and uninteresting. And that's just part of who I am. Again, it does not have to be based in any sort of reality, right? But because it's explained something, we have that reward. So you might be wondering why I'm telling you about this. Um, but the reality is that our lives are full of these kinds of automatic thoughts. Some of them are kind of self-deprecating, some of them are maybe self-boosting. There's kind of all kinds of them, right? But the more we can become aware of what these automatic thoughts are, the more we can be curious about them and wonder, like, is this actually true? Um, is this helping me? And so a few things that can help with this, and then gratitude is going to be coming in here. Don't you worry, we're getting there. But the one of the first things that we can do is last week I talked about mindfulness and meditation as a way to sort of like slow our brains down a little bit and create a pause in between something that happens and then our own reactions to it. And so that can even be true with our automatic thoughts. So that as something happens, we can kind of slow down, we can observe within ourselves, like, oh, I'm having this automatic thought. Like, I often think about this. This is sort of one of my stories that I have about myself. Um, and then we can start to question, like, oh, okay. So I'm first even just like aware of it. The second thing that that kind of meditation and mindfulness can do is to help us then be curious about it and be able to stay with the feeling of uncertainty because we can't question those automatic thoughts if we're unwilling to feel the discomfort of uncertainty of not actually being able to complete that story. Because if we are questioning our automatic thoughts, we're now questioning the story. And if we don't have a story, we don't feel as confident and in control and certain. And so we have to sort of live into that, like, okay, maybe I don't have all the information and maybe I don't really know what's going on. And maybe it's worse, right? But like, I don't know. It's uncertain. And that's an icky feeling. And so being able to sit in sort of meditative practices can help us sit in that feeling of uncertainty and discomfort a little bit longer and like help us to like stay in that and to get to the point where we can then question things and stay curious about it and try to find some more clarity on whatever it is that we need clarity on, right? So that can kind of create that space for us to be able to do that. Um, And so, gratitude is a kind of mindfulness exercise in a sense, because it's helping us to question the reality that we've created for ourselves. Gratitude helps us to be curious about what's really happening in our world. Because we might go through our whole day and we have all these automatic thoughts that are like telling us certain things that make us feel kind of crappy. But we believe it because we've given a reward in our systems that yes, this is true, but it still might make us feel really bad. But as we kind of get into that questioning of our automatic thoughts and our stories, gratitude is one of the things we can kind of slip in there, even if we don't have things figured out yet, about the details of our different circumstances and our automatic thoughts and the stories behind it. But gratitude kind of like wedges a little like a spike into something, right? And just like into that thought process to say like, okay, my life is not actually 100% awful, right? Or you know, we actually do have things that we can feel good about that are going well in our lives, that are going well in social interactions. Because even if we just start out with like a daily practice that's like one time in the morning, right? And we just think about like one thing that we're grateful for the day, that might not explain every single circumstance, right? And not every circumstance has something to be grateful about, right? Sometimes things are really just hard. But not everything, right? And so we have a lot of things in our day that we could have some gratitude toward, but we just aren't used to thinking that way about because we have other automatic thoughts that are getting in the way. So we start out maybe, let's say, with a practice that is just like one kind of gratitude thought, let's say in the morning or in the evening. And we just think about one thing in the day that was really good, that we're grateful for. And then the next day we do the same thing and we just think about one thing and we just think about one thing, but that creates a new neural pathway. It creates like that new file system because again, our brain wants to automate things and it wants to look for like patterns and connections. And so even at the beginning of our practice, we don't even have to feel like we feel grateful about what we're thinking about. We can just name it, like almost like scientists. Like I just cognitively understand this was something that was good that happened in my day. So I will just call that's something I'm grateful for. Um, and so slowly over time, that new neural pathway, it's kind of like as you're going through like a field, our brains, it's like going through a field where it's like, um, you have like one path, like the deer path, right? And it's like you see it, the more times you go on it, the more often it wears down. And then it's like, oh yeah, there's the path. Let me take that path. And so getting a new path is just like you have to create a new path through the field. And then like looking at it a second time, you have to like find it again, and it takes a lot more effort. Oh yeah, that's the way I went before. I can see like a little bit of crushed wheat or whatever. And then like each time you do it, it's like, oh yeah, that it gets stronger and stronger and easier to see. And so before you know it, then over time, it's like, oh yeah, this is a new path that I've made this direction. Each time I go down that path, it makes it more and more easy to see for the future. It makes it more and more real. So that's like a neural pathway in our brains. So as we start this gratitude practice and we just have, it can be very mechanical. It can just be walking the new path. I don't believe it. I don't like it. I still feel really crappy and depressed. That is okay. That's where we start, right? And we just have, like I said, sort of one idea of something that happened that was good in our day. But then over time, as we maybe start to feel like, oh yes, I think this is actually true. You know, like I actually am starting to feel more emotionally grateful, and it's eventually kind of starting to like feel it more. But then also, again, as that neural pathway continues, I'm maybe starting to look for the patterns more often in my life too. So I have like a set time of my day where I'm intentionally being grateful, but it's rewiring my brain enough that I'm starting over time to now see things that I'm grateful for in other times of my life throughout the day as well, because it's getting to be just sort of how my brain is starting to work. And then when we get into circumstances where we're trying to challenge some of our automatic thoughts and starting to question and be curious about them, it's easier then if we have a gratitude practice to be like, well, what am I maybe there's something that I can be grateful for in this situation. But it happens more automatically because we're training our brain to see things that we're grateful for. It's like to find things to be grateful for. And so that can sort of come into that staying curious about our automatic thoughts, having that gratitude practice can come together to help to kind of untangle some of those automatic thoughts that are maybe not as helpful in our lives. I feel like I just kind of like barreled through that. It was like a lot of information that I was trying to like make into like kind of a fast idea. Does anybody have like a question on that before I continue? Something I need to clarify because I skipped over it too quickly or forgot to add in about it. Okay.
Nothing in
Alrighty.
the
Well, if you
chat.
do think of anything, sorry.
Oh, I was just letting you know there's nothing in the chat right now.
Okay. Well, if y'all do think of anything, feel free to type it in, um, for sure. So you've been listening for long enough. Let us start to think a bit about actually um, putting them into practice. Because like theory is great, or like understanding something is great. But studies again show like um, you can have like all the understandings of why you should do something. You can feel very motivated and like totally get why to do something. But that really doesn't help you to actually do the thing, right? And so the next little section, we're going to think about different ideas for a gratitude practice, and then also ways to actually make that stick into your daily routine and to have it become an actual habit. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Enough of the sort of ideas about it. Um, so we kind of heard some things in the chat box, which I really appreciate. A lot of them have to do with journaling or writing it down, which is really, really a good way to do that. It's great to think in our own inside of our own heads. It's perfectly fantastic. But the more we can express it through writing, through like an artistic way of expressing it in any kind, writing notes, that kind of a thing, the more it kind of becomes more alive for us and processes not just in our heads as a cognitive idea, but really into our hearts and into, yeah, like more of like an experiential kind of situation. So um, we'll think of a few. ways to do this. So if you were on with me last week, we did a body scan where we were grateful for like the different parts of our body. We're not going to do it again, but just like a reminder to spark your memory that that is something that if you were here last week, you could do that as a gratitude practice. It's really easy to be really critical of our own selves, and especially of our bodies. And so again, creating those new neural pathways of like, oh yeah, my body's not all just, betraying me and all these terrible things or whatever. I can think about as sort of contradictory information to challenge some of those thoughts. Like, oh, actually, you know what? My toes do help me balance. That's awesome. Or like my eyelashes, like they catch the sweat coming off of my forehead as I'm working out. Or, just like as much detail as we can about getting specific, the better. And so as we think about for our bodies, I think it's just like a really nice practice. And one piece as we get into this as well is to really think about being as specific as possible. So as people study gratitude and what makes it most effective, a thing that consistently comes up is that specificity. So if we every day are just like, yeah, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my family, or I'm grateful for, variations of kind of the same really large overarching life circumstances, that's something, right? Like that's great. But the more specific you can be, the more effect it has on us, right? So maybe my thing is like, okay, so today my daughter, not only am I grateful for my family, but also today my daughter, really asked how my day was and really tried to connect with me, like listening to what I had to say. And it just felt really good. It was really sweet of her. She's not just thinking about herself as a junior high kid. Um, so it could be, just it could be really small. It could be really big, but really the key is having it being specific. So yeah, don't feel like it has to be like the biggest, awesomest thing that amazing things are happening every day that are like huge, right? But it's more like it can be very, very small. It could be that somebody, held the elevator door open for you as you were late and coming in, right? Or something. But just that being specific about it is what makes like a really big difference. We're going to go through a few things here that are more new for today. Similar to last week too, as we begin, I want to be clear too that we don't have to try all of these things. The idea is I'm going to throw a few out and we'll practice a couple, but that we can take one that resonates with us a little bit, that kind of makes us curious to try, and that we just try that one, right? And you can just do a Google search online later if that one doesn't work out for you in the long run. They say like, okay, what are other gratitude practices? And then you can try something else in the future too. But just stick with like one at a time. Because if you try to do 5 different ones all at once or 2 or 3, it can kind of just get to be too much and then you drop the whole thing altogether. So the idea is like, what can I do every single day, ideally? And so just try to, as we go through, try to think of one that might be something that you can stick with every day and just forget about the rest, right? All right. So, starting with more meditative ones, ideas, we're gonna do really connect with things that we have experienced that we really like, right? So, I'm going to have us go through some guided imagery about either a landscape, like maybe you love the ocean or the forest or like a place that's like general, or maybe it's a place that you really love that you feel safe and comfortable in, like your grandma's house, back when, she was alive, or, you know, I don't know, like a specific place, right? Or it might be a pet that you really connect with, or it might be a person that you really connect with. So try to just come up with for a moment either the place or the person or the pet that we're thinking of. And then I'm going to have us close our eyes, and I can't see any of you. So I'm just going to keep going through as if you really are doing what I'm asking you to do. And closing our eyes, and let's take a deep breath in and out. We have a lot on our mind, probably. That's natural and normal. And so when you feel your mind, or you notice that your mind is wandering to some other thought, it's a good time to practice self-compassion and just being gentle with yourself. And then calmly and slowly just bring your attention back to what we're discussing in this present moment. you're not doing it wrong. That's actually strengthening your observation brain part when you do that. So it's perfectly, really, really good. Um, and so let us bring up in our mind's eye that favorite place or landscape or pet or person. And essentially, we're going to go through our five senses, really becoming as immersed in this moment as we can be. So first, visually, try to get as many details of the situation as you can, like visual details first. If it's a person, do they have a facial expression in particular? What's the lighting like? Just imagine you're really in that moment and just seeing as many details as you can. I'll be quiet for like a minute and you can really take that in. And then once you really have that visual expanded out, let's go into our audio. So doing the listening, are there words being spoken? Is there music in the background? Can you hear the wind through the trees or the ocean on the beach? Are there any kind of sounds in the room or the space? And then are there different smells going on? Like maybe you're in a house that just has that specific smell that you only smell when you're in that house, or that with that person who has that kind of perfume, or your pet that just kind of has that pet smell, or maybe you're outside, the nature smell. Maybe somebody's cooking in the background. Taste can be a little trickier with this. Maybe you're eating a meal. And then we're going to do our external senses. So maybe there's like wind on our face, and we can think about the temperature, if it's warm or cool. Maybe there's a fireplace going, or maybe you're outside in a cool day. Are you sitting and you can feel the chair beneath you? Or standing, you can feel the ground beneath you? Maybe you're walking through nature and you can feel how the ground feels like on the bottoms of your feet kind of differently with every step that you take. Are you holding somebody's hand or feeling the fur of a pet underneath your hand? And then do you feel an internal sensation? Like maybe you're feeling relaxed, or maybe you're feeling grief, or maybe you're feeling anticipation. And sometimes we can't always name the emotion, but we can feel the body sensation. So maybe we are noticing sort of a spaciousness within our chest, or maybe we're feeling pressure in our stomach, or maybe sort of tingling under our ribs. Just sort of notice, particularly in our torso area, if there's any either body sensations or emotions that we can identify. And I'll give you another minute to really try to experience this place or this person or pet with all of these different sensations and a senses engaged. Just really sink in into this moment. And when your mind wanders, again, give yourself grace. Just bring your attention back to this person or place or pet. And we likely chose this person, place, or pet because it is someplace we feel safe or loved, cared for. And so even if we have other feelings that we're experiencing in the midst of this, like perhaps grief or longing, we can also, in the midst of those emotions, also have a sense of gratitude towards it as well. And so as we finish up, just to name the gratitude for this place that you're in. And maybe it's simply a cognitive acknowledgement, or maybe it's something you can experience in your body as a physical sensation of gratitude. There's no wrong way, both are perfectly good. Just take a moment for that acknowledgement of gratitude. You can take a deep breath in and out once more. And coming back all together once again. And just to acknowledge too, like with the note in the chat that as we feel, if you go through these different things, we might feel calm or we might feel gratitude, but it doesn't mean we're not also feeling all of our other difficult emotions as well. And so hopefully as we are going through these things, that it does help to kind of breathe into and kind of embrace the full life experience as well. Um, Other ideas for meditation, if you do, or not for meditation, but for gratitude, if you do have a pencil or paper nearby, you could grab one and then sort of jot down thoughts as we go through these in case you're like me, and unless I write everything down, I'm not going to remember it later. So again, you don't have to write everything down, but if something strikes you as something that you do want to try, just make all yourself a little note so you don't have to try to remember later, what was it that I said? So that would be one, going towards this place again, maybe as you're going to sleep at night or something where you can kind of feel calm and have this be sort of the last thing of your day can be nice, or whatever works for you. But having this kind of guided, I did the guided visualization, but you can do it not guided by somebody, right? You can just think of your person or place or landscape or pet, and then just go through each of your five senses. Well, it's not even five, right? Because we have the two kinds of, well, it's five senses, but you have your external sensing, like the wind and the chair underneath you and somebody holding your hand or petting. But then you also have the internal version, right? So you're feeling particularly your torso area, everything going on in here, and how our body sensations, what's arising for us, right? We tend to get disconnected from our bodily sensations, especially when we've been through painful things. So the more we can kind of gently ease into being more connected with how our bodies are feeling in different situations, the better for our well-being. And starting to connect in places of like visual image and like imaginary places of gratitude and goodness is a good kind of safe place to start reconnecting with the sensations of our body. Um, so we can also do a meditation, just to throw another meditation in there, where if we are somebody who can really feel that sense of gratitude, and again, if that's not you, you're still doing great in life. Don't worry. This is not like a judgmental thing, but for some people, that feeling of gratitude as a physical sensation can be stronger. And so if that is you, even just taking 5 minutes, and having your focal point of a meditation be that bodily sensation of gratitude in our body. And then when our mind wanders, and we just bring it back to that feeling of gratitude, can be just kind of a way to cultivate that feeling in our body and in our brains. Again, that body scan that we did last week, where we're grateful for different parts of our body, and particularly what they do for us in like a really practical way, right? Maybe we have parts that we think are very, very beautiful, and that's great too. I don't mean to discount that as well, but it's not just the things we find beautiful that we're grateful for, but also how like our fingers help us grab things, right? Our opposable thumbs are really handy. I'm super grateful for them, right? And to really think about even just cognitively all the ways that that's good for us. Um, Doing a food meditation is also, they're not all meditations. This is the last one I'll bring up for meditation style. But doing a food meditation is really fun. Whatever you're eating, as you pick it up, again, kind of going through your five senses as much as you can. You can't always hear the food and things, but visually, like really looking at it and like all of its light and shadow and coloring and things. Smelling it first and just really enjoying the smell of it. And then like slowly eating it and just like keeping it on our tongue for a moment and just before you swallow it, just fully experience all the flavors and like be really slow about it. And it's I like doing it with things like chocolate and things that are just really delicious. Another way you can do it is being intentional with like whole food, like fruits and vegetables, and things that just like come straight from the earth, because you have that extra layer of like, this is just what the earth provides for us, and that's amazing, right? It just comes out and it tastes delicious and it's nourishing for our body. And we can thank the farmers and we can thank the ranchers and we can thank all the people in between that get it from the farm to our table. And so there's a connection with like the people in the world as well. So that's a really fun one for a sense of gratitude as well. People have talked about journaling, which is really, really good, as I said before, of kind of that creative process of bringing it from our brains through our hands into the creative world. Um, you might do a full journal. Like again, studies show like all these studies, right? But they really do show like how important even like 15 minutes of journaling every day is like really good for our mental health and well-being. And so it can just be journaling about everything, but including something that we're grateful about in there is great. But if you're like, I would love to journal, but there's no way I'm devoting 15 minutes every single day of my life to it, doesn't have to be that or nothing, right? It could be you could grab yourself a thing of post-it notes and just put it on like your bedside table or something. And then at the end of the day, just like write one thing on your post-it note and maybe stick it in like a different pile, right? Like transfer it over. And so like one thing and done. Again, just try to be as specific as you can about something that happened that day. So just it can take you 10 seconds, right? The idea is it's something that you can do every day, or most days, right? Not do really, really well for a week and then never do it again. Doesn't have the same impact, right? Even if that 10 seconds every day has more of an impact. So that's kind of the hope. One idea that I have never done, but I keep thinking that I'd like to do it, maybe as the new year is starting, this is our moment. But people will sometimes write like on like scraps of paper and just have like one thing that they were grateful for specifically for that day. And then they'll put it like in a jar. And then on the very last, so they'll start that like January 1st. And then on December 31st, as part of like their kind of New Year's celebration, that New Year's Eve, is they'll go through and just read all of the things that they were grateful for each day that happened to them that year. And apparently it's just like a really lovely experience. So as we're approaching the end of the year, you could incorporate that one. Maybe I'll try that this year because that really does sound lovely, doesn't it? Um, in moments, you don't have to wait till the last day of the year either. If you're having that day where you're like, why, why anything? This is too hard. You can pull out that jar and start reading through them in those moments as well. And that can be really helpful too, because we all have those days as well. If you live with another person or other people, you could include like rituals, like habit rituals, like at the dinner table or going to bed, or at some point that you're like most days that you find yourself together in some kind of conversation to just go around and see what everybody's grateful for from that day. Is something that I've tried to do with my family with more or less success. One of these days we'll get it to stick, but that's kind of a nice one. Another one that involves writing is to get in the habit of writing a thank you text or a thank you card to a different person. Every day seems excessive, right? But maybe like once a week or like once a month, like maybe the first day of the month. You think about somebody who in the last month you feel really grateful for, or maybe it's somebody you haven't talked to in years, but you're like, you know what, when I was in college, they really were helpful through a certain time of my life or whatever. And so to track them down on Facebook and send them a message or something too. People love receiving those. Um, and so you kind of have that like double gratitude feel. Like you also know you're making somebody else's day, which I also feel grateful for when I can do that for somebody too. So it's kind of both sides of the both ends on that one. And then what time is it? 15 minutes. Good. Um, and then my last idea, which again, not comprehensive, everything, it's just sort of give you some ideas, is to challenge to write three specific things that you're grateful for about a person that you struggle to feel any good feelings about. Let me say that in a little different way because I feel like I started that sentence weird. So think about somebody that you maybe you work with or in your family or that you just sort of see, or maybe you just see them on the news and you just every time you're like, ugh, they are so difficult. Um, and that's not to like not acknowledge that because again, they can be difficult. But they can also have some good things about them. And again, it's just to sort of like balance out. Like, yes, all of us are people doing the best we can with the resources and tools we have in this moment, but who also really struggle with our own things, right? And some of us at different times of our life more than others. So if this person is just really driving you crazy, to help to see them as a whole person, um, we can think about maybe one, two, or three things that's like, here's some things that I can actually appreciate about you. That I can look at you and say, you know what, you have good hygiene, that's good. I'm really glad, you smell pretty good. Or you're ambitious. That's good for you, like you got a really good drive, to you, or whatever it might be. It might, it doesn't have to be these grand things, but just if you can think of as many things that are good about the person, it's not going to be like life-changing, right? But just again, as we see people and think about people and in relation to ourselves, how do we round them out as whole people and not just sort of caricatures that we can hate really easily. Um, okay, one other thing that I just thought of too that is a good transition actually, because this last little bit of time, I want to think about how to create a habit and just some practical tips for creating new habits, because that's a whole thing also, right? Like we can have all these great things we want to do, but like how do we actually make them stick in our daily schedules? So one that's sort of like a fun habit, but is also like a fun way to do gratitude, but also you can kind of sneak it into a daily habit more easily. Because my guess is most of us are on some kind of social media, Instagram or Facebook or some of these things that just have like groups that you can follow. Um, and so if I'm on social media anyway and I'm looking through, it's kind of nice to start following organizations that are intentionally ones that like spark gratitude or feelings of joy. Like there's this one that I thought of it today because I was looking at it. It's on Instagram for sure. I'm sure they have a Facebook page too, but it's Ed, like the name Ed, like short for Edward, dot people. And this guy, I don't, he just has the best life ever. He somehow makes a living doing this as a, social media person. But he goes around and he just like travels the entire world and he dances with people. It's the most joyous thing that you can see on social media. He like asks different people, like, show me the dance of your country or like your community. And he's really like, he's in like the middle of nowhere, every single country, like big cities, country, rural places, like he's everywhere, right? And so he asked them to show like their favorite dance. And so they like show them dancing, and then he tries to like do it too. And it's just like adorable and like the way they look at each other and like how much fun they're having. Or this last one that he was doing, he just kind of did this like funky little like dance, like shoulder shrug thing. And then he would like approach different people like working at different places out in the world, and then like they would do it back at him in like their own kind of funny way. And it's just delightful. I'm sure there's many more wonderful social media places to follow that are sort of that similar where you watch it, you're just like, oh, I just feel better like for this 3 seconds that I watch this, right? Or I guess there's one that's called Siegfried and Joy instead of Siegfried and Roy. And it's really funny. They do these like magic things that are like totally ridiculous and like clearly you can see like how they're doing it. Um, so Siegfried and Joy is another one. There's a bunch out there, right? I won't keep going into them, but if you're on your social media anyway, it's like automating it for you, right? You don't even have to think about, oh yeah, I got to do my gratitude thing today. I just follow this person, and as I'm searching anyway, I'm swiping up, I run across it. I don't have to think about it. Because in order for our habits to stick, as we're trying to create whatever our new habit is, and for today, as we think about adding like a gratitude habit into our lives, um, I'm taking this basically off of this. Oh, I tried this last time. It didn't work. Trying to show other things. Maybe you saw a little bit. It's terrible. Okay. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And some of you are probably like, oh yeah, I've read that. It's so good. I hear you. It is really quite good. And there's a bunch of ideas in there. And I would recommend it for whatever kind of new habit you're trying to start. I'll give you just a handful of ideas from that book that could help with this particular thing. So the first one, which is my favorite, is what he calls habit stacking. And the idea is going through your day, and you can even like write down a list of like the things that you already do every single day that are just already habits. And you might have to like, and I recommend like writing it down because you might not even realize that you're doing it because they're just so automated in your routine. So like, when you get out of bed in the morning, you brush your teeth. Like that's a habit, right? You hop in the shower, you go get breakfast, like what's your routine of the day? And then maybe you have a routine, just kind of like going through your whole day, writing out all the things that you already do just every single day. And then think about, is there a place that I can insert my gratitude habit in with something else, right? And so maybe it doesn't make sense to do it, right after the shower because you're in a hurry in the morning and you just don't have time to add anything into it. But maybe at night you realize, well, after I brush my teeth at night before I go to bed, I do have like 3 minutes where I could sit down and like write something or whatever. So you just like wedge the new habit into something you're already doing. And that way it's like it just becomes again automatic, right? So it's like I brush my teeth, I write in my habit journal, I go to bed. And it's as intrinsic as doing kind of your like waking up, brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, hop in the shower. Like it's just part of the routine and you don't have to think about it anymore because it's just what you do, right? When you do one habit, you automatically think of the next thing that you're trying to do. So attaching it together is habit stacking is a good way to do it. Also making it easy. If you are really ambitious and you're like, I'm going to start journaling every single night before bed for 15 minutes, and you do it for 3 days, and on the fourth day, you're like, oops, I forgot about it. Not a problem. We miss days all the time. Try the next day. But if you're finding consistently, like, this is not working for me, like, I just do not want to do 15 minutes of journaling every day, that's a really good sign, like as a little scientist, non-judgmental and full of self-compassion. We just like take it back. We like, this didn't really work for me. So what adjustments can I make? And a really great first adjustment is to make it shorter and easier, right? How do I like break this down? So it's like the first step is just the easiest thing we could possibly do. He calls it the 2-minute rule. It could even be less than 2 minutes for our case here. It could be like 10 seconds. It could even just be like, I am going to write something on my sticky note. It might even not be something I'm super grateful for. It's just something that happened in my day. I can't think of anything that I'm grateful for, but this happened. And so I'm just going to start there, right? Just like what's the easiest first step that you can possibly think of to like that you could actually do every day, right? So just break it down. First easy step. Another idea is to schedule it. Similar to habit stacking, the idea is that like you have a certain time of your day where like this is just what I do. Because again, that study that I was referring to earlier was actually from this book. And it talked about how like they have different groups of people and like who actually had their habits stick. And so one group was giving like all the motivational information about why doing this thing was so amazing. And then another group was probably the control group. I don't know. Another group was like, they didn't get all that motivational information, but they just were like, here's the thing you're going to do. Tell me the time and the place that you're going to do it and like put it in your calendar. And that was it. And the group that was clear, like the clear winner, was the group that just had it in their calendar as like, here's the time and here's the place that I'm going to do it. Even though they didn't have any of the motivational information. So it really comes down to like, how do I like just really practically put this into my day? And so for me, I could schedule it into my calendar, but I might sort of like, oh yeah, I won't do it today. I'm too busy. but I could because I also have to like see it in my calendar too, and I'm not always watching it that closely. But I'll put like a reminder on my phone. You can do like a daily alarm, right? So like every day I know that I would like to, think about how my day went as I'm driving home from work. And I'm always driving home from work at like 4:30 in the afternoon. And so I'm going to set my daily reminder timer alarm because you can set it for like to go off every single day at that time for like 4:50, right? And so like by that time I'm like en route to my house. And so as I'm driving, I want to remember that when I'm driving home, I want to think about what I'm grateful for. But then I also give myself a reminder on my phone so that the alarm goes off, it's like, oh, why is my alarm going off? Oh yeah, that's right. I have to think of something I'm grateful for. And so kind of having these little reminders for having it like as a scheduled thing in our day is really helpful. Also my last thing, and then we'll see if we've got questions or if we can just get off a couple minutes early, is to set our environment for success. And that again, he says in the book that they show that way more than like a sense of like personal willpower is really just how people's environments are set up for success or not. How do we make it just as natural and easy as possible? So like in this case, if we want to do like sticky notes, or like little slips of paper, like with a jar idea, we put it like on our bedside table. And so at the end of the day, you see it, it's right there. You don't have to think, oh yeah, I need to do my gratitude habit. I gotta go back downstairs and grab my paper. Where did I put my jar? Like all of that's taken care of in your environment. It's kind of like having like the Snickers bars really close to the cash register. It's like the same idea, right? Put your whatever, however you're gonna do your gratitude, if it's like a physical piece to it, like put it out where you're gonna do it. Or like maybe on your like your bathroom counter or however you're gonna stack it, right? With a different habit. Um, just kind of have it like a visual, like have it right there, super easy. Or if you were wanting to do like the thank you cards to people weekly or monthly, to just go buy a bunch of them straight out the chute. Like have all of them ready for the year, ready to go, like in a space like at your wherever, like your station that you work. But have them ready and bought and ready to go. So you don't have to like, oh, I have to go to the grocery store and buy another thank you card because it's almost that time of the month. It's like, nope, you just have them ready to go right there. So make it as easy as possible in your environment. So there's some ideas. So hopefully you have like at least one idea from the kinds of practices for gratitude that you might want to try this month. And then hopefully like at least one habit strategy to try to like put together to make it work for you. And again, if you try it for a few days and it's not working for you, just like practice self-compassion, right? And be like a scientist who observes the situation without shame and just says like, okay, this didn't work, let's try something else. Was it too complicated? Do I need to have my environment set up for success a bit more? What things can I change to maybe make it a little bit more easy? Or maybe just to say, this maybe isn't the time of my life for it. I'll try again next month or something. But always coming back to that non-judgmental self-compassion, because that's what actually motivates. If you're sorry, maybe I will take the whole time. I keep thinking more things to say. If we're coming from a place of shame, self-talk of like, I'm such an idiot, like I'm so bad at this, I really just need to like do this, like, and it's just really hard on yourself. That actually makes it harder to do the thing because shame self-talk is always like a burden and a weight and makes it harder for us to do the things. But if we can come at it more of like I am a person who's trying my best. I'm a good person who has struggles. And when I didn't do this the way I wanted it to, that is an action that I did that I don't feel great about, but I can work on. So like you're still a good person, struggling but doing your best. And here are some actions that I can address, right? Rather than I am a failure as a whole, unworthy of love and a terrible human being. It's like, nope, I'm a good human being, trying my best, even though I struggle. This action that I did needs some work, right? And I can look at that as separate from my own sense of worthiness and well-being. I think that's where I'll stop talking.
Hey, Rachel, we have one comment in the chat, and it says, I'm struggling with the death of my husband. He passed away last Christmas Eve. So these last two meetings, it just moved on me. These last two meetings have really helped. And then we have some thank yous and perfectly timed for the holiday season coming up.
I'm glad it's helpful. I hope it wasn't just a lot of like talking with lots of information kind of on overload. but yeah, I hope that it has been helpful because life is a struggle and it's hard and things that are really hard happen. And so again, these practices aren't to make everything pretend that they're okay. It's to be able to live into it more boldly and to process and get through and not just sort of stuff and numb and distract. So I'm glad that hopefully you're taking at least some things from it. Mm.
Yeah, we really appreciate you spending the last 2 weeks with us. A lot of great information, and I know that I'll be making some changes. I'm already trying to figure out where I'm going to put my jar. So
Yay, good.
yeah.
Excellent.
So thank you so much. We appreciate it. And
Mm.
for everybody who's joined us, please join us next Tuesday. We're going to have Department of Labor talking about fair housing. And so thank you so much, Rachel. We really appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you all.
Bye.